Yes, you. I just saw you on LinkedIn. You're looking for a new opportunity and you don't know, do I want to keep staying in the same career? Maybe I'm going through a divorce. Maybe I'm a divorced dad and I need guidance. Whatever it is. Hi, it's me, Tommy. Welcome to another episode of Blending in the Family, the podcast. But before we get started, I just want to talk to you about Blending the Family coaching program. Here's what I want you to do. Here's what I'm asking you to do. Go to blendingthefamily.com, click on coaching program, and then click on calendar. Let's set up a 30-minute free talk. You and I see where you want to go. Where do you want to be in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? Again, blendingthefamily.com, click on coaching program, click on calendar. Yes, let's get to this brand new episode of the podcast. Welcome to another edition of the podcast known as Blending the Family. I am your host, Tommy Maloney. Welcome to this episode. Our guest, I'm going to just say it right out the front end before we get into all the other stuff. Christian Vinceneux is our guest on this episode, and I will give you more details of who Christian is. We had a wonderful conversation, and I was so proud of myself. I got his last name right. Christian is originally from France. No conehead jokes, okay? No conehead jokes. Anyway, how are you doing? You doing good? Welcome to my podcast, Blending the Family. If this is your first time listening, thanks for coming by. And if you're a regular listener, thank you. And also thank you if this is your first time listening. Anywho, how are you doing? You doing good? Life treating you good? As I'm looking out my window, I'm thinking possibly snow? Maybe? I don't know. They're talking about here in northern Colorado, there's an opportunity for snow. Anyway, what is going on? I am drawing a blank. I am actually excited. I'm actually recording in my home office, and we'll talk a little bit about this on this episode, but you may or may not know we have some temporary guests in the home. Bonus daughter Becca and her boyfriend are temporarily living here for a month until they move into their new place. And I have been having to camp out upstairs because it was just too difficult to go downstairs. And here's why. Becca and her boyfriend have a cat, and we're trying to separate the cat from the dog, our dog Otis. And we don't have, my wife just put up the new door, not the new door, but put the door back up. And anyway, so we had taken down that door years ago. The door's back up, so now it's easier because we actually had to take a table, a folding table, and put that in front of the doorway. So Leo, the cat, couldn't. Well, Leo's a kitten right now, but Leo's got some hops. Leo can jump. And so, like I said, we're trying to keep Otis and Leo separated. But anyway, now I don't have to push a table and another door, because the door wasn't attached yet, to get into the basement, into my home office. I know you're going, oh my God, Tommy, that is stress. And we're going to talk about stress on this episode as well. What else? Oh, have you been checking out, I've done some videos of lately. They're on YouTube, Blending the Family. They're on my Instagram, Blending Family. They're on my Twitter, Blending Family. They're on my Facebook, blendingthefamily.com. Or no, Facebook, whatever. Well, Blending the Family, Facebook. Jeez. I don't think I have some caffeine in this. Maybe that's what I need. Maybe I didn't drink enough coffee today. Have to make more tomorrow. All right. Trying to think. Oh, the book. Duh. A update, and that's why I was saying I have some videos out there talking about the update of the book. Once again, here's where we're at. The book is all edited. I've gone through several edits of the book. Very happy with it. I really am. My editor, Dallas, she did a great job not taking my voice out of it. If you're a writer, you understand what I'm saying. But if you're not, you want to make it still sound like it's you, even though somebody else is editing. And the way I write is the way I talk. And sometimes that's not good. But Dallas did a great job editing the manuscript. So now it's just in the process of being physically built, the book. I haven't seen the dimensions yet of the book or how many pages the book is going to be, but anyway, I'm super excited because we're so close. So if you want to order the book, it's mydadsadvicebook.com, mydadsadvicebook.com. Like I said, I'm all over social right now with promoting the book. And if you know any other podcasters want me on their podcast, and you're probably going, Tommy, you're hilarious. You should be on my buddy's podcast. I don't care. Let's do it. Let's make it happen, Captain. So there you go. All right. Enough about me. Let's talk about Christian Vinceneux. Christian Vinceneux, I love his content on LinkedIn, and that's how I saw him. And I was like, Christian, you've got to come on the podcast. So Christian is a parenting coach. He helps anxious parents to become calm and confident from growing up as an anxious kid, and we talk about this, to working as an occupational therapist for over 30 years. It is Movember, and Christian is way ahead of me and all the rest of us. He's got a killer mustache. Killer. Christian has developed a unique approach to help parents and create practical changes for themselves and their child. And we talk a lot about some great tips to help you and we parents out. Some of the topics we cover in this episode is what is an empath, the word intention, and what it means to moi. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not socially awkward. I'm just an introvert. How to bookend your day. We talk about self-reflection and what is pulling energy from you. Something I want to mention, and I put this in the new book, My Dad's Advice at 5:04 a.m., that after each chapter I put a list of questions. And one of the questions I put in, and we actually talked about this in this episode, is small wins. So each day you should have at least one small win. We talk about that. And finally, how to talk to your kids about how you handle stress and how to help them with stress as well. So there you go. So like I said, Christian Vinceneux is our guest, and I hope you get some great information because Christian really brought it. He brought it. And in the show notes, you'll see how you can find him. I will spell his last name, actually. So Christian, Vinceneux. Vinceneux. And you can find Christian on, like I said, on LinkedIn, or you can go to his website, which is lifeguidecoaching.org. lifeguidecoaching.org. There you go. All right. Thanks for listening. Thanks for downloading. Well, hold on. Let me rephrase that. Thank you for downloading, and then thank you for listening to this podcast episode. And if this is your first time listening, I do this thing to just help you become successful. And it's a quote I heard from Terry Crews, the actor, the author, the furniture designer, the artiste, and that is, your success is my success. Christian, as I was just telling you, I am so stressed. I mean, I just hit the record button and nothing happened, and then I'm like panicking, and then I hit it again, and so luckily here we are. So here's why I'm stressed, Christian.
Hmm.
Here we go. Um, I'm stressed because I'm all in on my business. We temporarily have one of our daughters and her boyfriend temporarily. I keep saying temporarily. Has just moved in with us as of late last night. I'm stressed for them because, well, they're kids. Um, Stressed because my son is away at college and far away, I should say.
Hmm.
Stressed about the home life, stressed about finances, stressed about keeping our dog Otis away from the daughter's cat, Leo. I'm stressed when I'm recording, and right before that, I see the platform I use, Zencaster, and I see people, the guests, sitting in the green room, and I don't know what to do. So, Christian, welcome to Blending the Family, the podcast, the very stressful podcast. You're in beautiful San Diego. You should never ever be stressed.
Hey, Tommy, it's good to be with you this morning. Uh, well, that sounds like a lot to be stressed about. I'm sorry you're going through that, and so that sounds like a lot.
It is, but the day is still young, and I'll figure it out. Um, so we were talking recently, and this is part of the reason why I wanted you on the podcast is to not only talk about how to de-stress us parents, but your backstory of being a anxious child, I should say, led you into the life of coaching, so to speak. So take me back to your childhood, and take me back to growing up. Um, as you say on your website, your parents really didn't know how to handle you. So take me back. What was Christian like as a young lad?
Hmm. Well, I appreciate that you're going back in time because um, I'm I'm a firm believer of a lot of who we are today and what we do today is heavily influenced by what how we grew up and which environment we grew up in, and so when I think of all the things that are supporting me today or influencing me today or supporting my work or how I got to my work, it's it really starts with childhood stuff. So um I was, from the outside, I was a pretty good kid, and I wasn't really a troublemaker, but I was on the inside. That's where things were not as good because I was a mess on the inside, and I was often freaking out. I was just very 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 shy. I was overwhelmed with just a lot of things, and so on one hand, home home felt safe, and it was pretty quiet, pretty low key. Both my parents had their version of anxiety. My mom was highly anxious, um, and it came out different ways. Maybe we'll talk about that later. But it's and then my dad was and later on I realized he was a highly sensitive person, HSP, and which of course nobody knew what it was at the time, and but as a highly sensitive person, it was, I mean, he was very kind, was very smart, very very present, but he had a lot of sensory sensitivities, and so he was very sensitive to noise. He was very sensitive to unexpected changes, sudden transitions, or feeling rushed, or being too warm or being too cold, or the day being too windy. And so what happened is that it really, both my mom's anxiety and my dad's anxiety created a lot of pressure, and I of course, I didn't know about it at the time, but I had to adjust. And what happened is that I became really good at tuning into their emotional states and tuning into what was going to make them happy and feel better. Because if I made a little too much noise when I was playing as a kid, my dad would come in and say, oh, you need to keep the noise down. That's really too noisy. It's too much. And or if I if I express some the so-called negative emotions, whether it was anger or sadness, or my mom would shut it down really quickly by saying things like, oh, don't do that, that's going to make me really sad, or that's going to upset me, or and so I learned early on to really control myself, to accommodate the people that I cared about, the people that I loved. And of course, all of that is completely unconscious, because when you're a kid, you don't know what's happening. You just do it, and you just adapt the best you can. And so it was just later on that I realized how those my own emotions and other people's emotions had affected me. And then I realized also that I was an empath. So I picked up a lot on other people's emotions just by being around them. And and so basically, growing up, I was just this kid, very very shy, very kind, very tuned in, but a little too tuned in, and so tuned in that I was always concerned about what was going on with other people. So of course, with you fast forward uh, many years, what I realized is that's that exact same thing that allowed me to be so good at what I'm doing today, because I'm so tuned into other people's emotional states. And when I worked with kids, when I worked with kids with autism or whatnot, who sometimes were nonverbal and who were melting down, I knew pretty much immediately what the child needed, without being told what they needed, because I could just feel it on an emotional, physiological level. And but so growing up, I was just very overwhelmed by emotions, and really trying to stay out of getting too much attention, because it was frightening. I just didn't know what to do with when people gave me some attention. And so it was it was challenging.
What careers were your mom and dad in?
My mom she was an accountant her entire life. She loved it, and she loved numbers. She was really good at it. Um, and my dad was in business management, sales for a while, then grew up the ladder, and was a it's I'm always stumbling on the words, because it was in France, and the titles were different and the systems were different than in the US. But um, he was often in charge of the um, of the sales force, of managing the business. And he liked it. As far as I could tell as a kid, they both my parents shared a lot of stories about their work at the dinner table. And um it was that part felt pretty good.
You mentioned that you're an empath, and I am familiar with that. I used to have a coaching client who was an empath. Can you let us all know what an empath is?
Yeah, in simple terms, it's as an empath, or empaths in general tend to be a lot more sensitive to other people's emotions. And so, to the point where it can really affect them, and to the point where they become really overwhelmed, and to the point where in some extreme cases, where it becomes really hard to function, where your energy becomes completely depleted because of other people's energy. And so it's and then usually as an empath, you're also extremely sensitive to your own emotions. So there's often, if you're not an empath, or if you haven't been exposed to empaths, it's the common wisdom is to think, well, just ignore people's emotions. That's not going to help. That's not going to help you to just pay so much attention to those emotions. Uh and it's and it works in theory, but it just doesn't work if you're an empath, because it's just, you just can't. It's that part of your brain that is so tuned into emotional stuff that you just can't turn it off. So a big area of growth for empath is to personal growth is to really do a lot of self-awareness work. Really start identifying how, all those emotions we have. Is that really, am I reacting to my own emotions? Am I reacting to other people's emotions? How is that impacting me? Is that impacting me in my body? Am I, do I have, is my stomach feeling tense, or is my neck feeling tense, or is it affecting me at night because I can't turn it off, and I have all those thoughts about what happened during the day, about people doing this or that, or people feeling stressed out, and I can't stop thinking about it. Or so a lot of self-awareness to understand how it affects you. And then the work lies in um, learning how, in simple words, to take care of yourself, and learning to set boundaries, learning to, it could be on some level, I'm, I'm pretty much of an extrovert. But as an empath, I have to. So as an extrovert, I can gain a lot. I can feel really energized being around people, and um, but at the same time, I can also, as an empath, reach my limit where I become really depleted, and I need to regroup, and I need to be on my own, and I need to have some quiet time. And so, learning how to manage your energy is a huge area of need for empaths.
How do you then? I just want to piggyback on you're talking about how even as somebody who's an extrovert, there are times where you need to decompress. So, how do you decompress, Christian, after being around, a group of people, or let's say you're in an audience and you come home? How do you be able to clear your head?
Right, right. Lots of ways. It's not just one thing, but over the years, I've just developed a lot of better understanding of what works for me and what I need. The other day I responded to someone's post on LinkedIn, and someone was talking a little bit about this, and I shared that for me, the way I handle a lot of my days is to um, intentionally underschedule. And
Hmm.
people talk a lot about being overscheduled, and I intentionally underschedule, because I know that you know part of me, I'm a little bit ADD, and I'm a little bit, and as a, being ADD as an extrovert, I can thrive on stimulation. I love novelty. I don't like tedious work. Tedious work is my enemy, right? And uh, so novelty, a lot of new projects, new things, new. But it gets to a point where if I don't pay attention, then I get overloaded. So my way of managing it is to really plan my days, and to be, I'm very protective of my days, of my quiet time, my downtime. And sometimes it's not possible, but it's been a little easier actually with the pandemic, because there's been less social time, less opportunities, or to spend time with people. But for example, with work appointments, with clients, I I get very I get very energized from working with my clients. It's really rare that I get drained. Once in a while I'll get really drained from a session, but usually I'm pretty energized. But still, I've learned that if I don't have enough downtime between sessions, then I start crashing in the middle of the day. And so for me, it's just a matter of, for example, of scheduling enough time, enough of a buffer between appointments, so that I can, do anything. I can change scenery. I can go outside and check on the yard, on the plants. I can have a snack. I can walk around. I can then and it's a lot of I always go for a walk. It's kind of been my main source of physical activity for a long time, and so I go for a walk on a daily basis. Sometimes at night when everything is quiet, and it's always a good way for me to clear my head. And I talk about it as being a little bit my meditative walks, because I often think of at the beginning of the walk of what's my intention. What's my intention going on this walk? Am I trying to uh, solve a problem? Am I trying to reflect on the day? Am I trying to, if I'm particularly stressed or feeling like I'm not doing enough, or things are not going in the right direction, then I'll try to flip it around and think, well, what is going well? Or what is, what are all the tabs running in my head that are draining my energy? Or and just that act of reflecting, of having that extra time to reflect, is a lot of what helps me um, recharge and unload of any negative energy, so to speak.
I love the word intention. Just for example, I'm a huge fan of the app Headspace. It's become a habit, which I'm very happy to say. And what I mean by that is I will use Headspace either in the afternoon to help me recharge, or as I'm going to bed. And one of the things I love about Headspace is it talks about intention. It talks about, well, why are you doing this? Why are you meditating for X amount of time? And, you know, you, the great thing about the word intention, in my mind, it gives you clarity, it gives you purpose, it gives you a reason why. So, like you were saying, Christian, well, for example, why am I going on this walk? What is it that I need to do or not do? Is it just to clear my head, or is it to help me, figure something out? My wife makes fun of me. My wife Ann makes fun of me because every day when I take Otis, our dog, to the dog park, I'm one of those people, Christian. I put the headphones on, and the dog park is big enough for me to do laps, and that's my intention is to get my steps in. I said not only a time I want to be there, but a step count. So that's my intention. But at the same time, what's more important, my intention of being in the dog park is not necessarily about me. It's about Otis. It's about Otis getting his exercise. It's Otis about being able to connect with other dogs. And at the same time, this is where my wife says I need to be less of my introvertness, because when I'm there, Christian, like I said, I have my headphones on. I'm listening to a podcast probably, or some music, and there are other humans out there, and I'm like, I really don't want to talk to other humans, because again, I'm an introvert. I don't want to say I'm socially awkward. Actually, this past last week, I went to a networking event, and to get myself, so my intention of going to this networking event was to go and actually get out of the house, but it was also part of trying to even meet new people who might be able to help me find, you know, not only just coaching clients, but other guests for the podcast. but it's really hard for me to go into a networking event. So one of the things I've
Mm.
learned to do is become an actor, become, not necessarily somebody I'm not, but uh, the role of Tommy is to go into a networking event and be an extrovert. As soon as I get
Mm.
home, I have to hide. I have to go back into my home office and either just sit and read or sit and listen to some music to just decompress. So it's something I've learned to start doing, but my safe space is at the dog park. My safe space is being able to somewhat ignore others. And, for me, that's where I set my intentions. My intention is to get my steps in and let Otis go play.
That's great, Tommy. That's a lot of great awareness on your part, of what you need and what you want to do, and it's I think it's great when you're in that place of really understanding what's going to help you be your best. And I think, to me, one of my, that's why I get on my soapbox, one of my soapboxes, but it's our society at large doesn't promote this kind of self-care. It's starting to be talked about, and I've been around for a while, and it's I've seen this change, and I've seen the changes where mental health was never talked about. It was only talked about if you had a child with schizophrenia, or if you had major depression, or if you had but otherwise that wasn't really talked about. And so things have changed a lot, and part of it is thanks to social media, because everybody's talking about everything and anything, and it's so I feel that often we're when we're trying to take care of ourselves, the way you're describing, the way to where you need more time, you don't want to talk with other people, and it's we're often swimming against the current a little bit, because there's often this underlying message in society, where general culture, where we have to, well, it's okay, just stay positive, just you'll be fine, and or the focus is on productivity, is on work, it's the hustle culture. It's the more you work, the stronger you are as a human being. That's often the message that you are. You hear people who say, oh, I don't need that much sleep. I sleep 3 hours a night, and and somehow it's giving that message that, okay, the more you do, the better you are as a human being, where you know uh, what's often happening is that something is falling apart. And what's falling apart is is our emotional health, or maybe our relationships, is not having enough time to be present with your kids, or with your spouse or partner, or not having enough time to be with yourself, or to really notice what you need. And it's always refreshing when I to hear people like sharing examples like you're sharing about, um, you know, knowing that you need less in order to be better.
Oh, definitely. I liked your part about talking about your schedule and underscheduling, and I think that's something that recently I've somewhat discovered is the unscheduling is to give yourself during your day, making sure that what I always recommend to people is to bookend your day, because you can't control the middle part. So, for example, how to bookend your day is maybe you get up, 23 minutes before everybody else, and you read for 15, 20 minutes, or you work in a journal. When you're getting ready to wind down, do the same thing, or something similar, write or read. And that's how you can control that. You can't control the rest of your day. I for example, to use the dog park, I knew I had a set time that I needed to get Otis from the dog park, because I had another meeting to get to. And but I've already know how I already started my day, and I already started my day with reading. And the thing I have really enjoyed reading this past year is the Daily Stoic. And so that's how I start my day. And then I'll end tonight, before I'm ready to go to bed, I will read something else. So I really like, Christian, how you talk about, looking at your schedule and not overwhelming your schedule, because then you'll get overwhelmed, and then it will be added additional stress. And as I've already mentioned opening, I have enough stress right now. I don't need any more. I've got
Right.
enough stress on my plate.
No, I see that, and and I think it's also like I have 20 thoughts at the same time going on, so I'm just gonna pick one. But
Oh my gosh, I need to introduce you to my wife, because my wife is the same way. And I'll stand there and I'll look at her, and she'll be doing that thing where she's thinking and she's got multiple thoughts. And I'll say to her, I'll go, "Well, welcome back." And she'll be like, "What?" I go, you literally left the planet. You left, and now you're back. Welcome back, Christian.
Thank you, thank you. No, I was just really, tuned into what you were saying, and there were multiple themes that were great, and well, as you were talking about your process of decompressing and bookending your day, I like that a lot, and for me, one thing that's worked toward the at the end of the day at night before I go to bed is to make sure that I have some reflection time, and self reflection has really become my number one power tool for just maintaining my sanity, for personal growth, for everything. And so I have this in my office space at home. I set up this glass board, and so I've been using it lately too. I started something new, and it's so I kind of like wrote several sections on it, and at the top of it I have all the what I call my running tabs, like what you have on your computer. And so I reflect on what have been the running tabs for the day, meaning all the things that have been pulling energy from me, and could be anything. It could be worrying about something, it could be a family issue, it could be whatever is the case. I just write it there just for the purpose of at least acknowledging it, and being aware of it. And then I have a section where I I list all the things that I want to acknowledge myself for that day, and where maybe I put particular effort into doing something that I didn't really want to do, or that I did anyway, or something that I really pushed myself, that was hard, that I figured out. Or and and then I have a section that I call my energy boosters, all the things that just boosted my energy during the day. And could be anything. Could be just being able to take an extra 20-minute break in the yard, and just looking at what's growing today, and or could be talking with someone, or and and then I have a section for um um the what I'm planning for the next day. So that kind of helps me clear my mind before going to sleep, of okay, that's my intention for tomorrow, that's my schedule, that's the things that I want to focus on. And so just having, going through this process of just writing a few things, and just, it's not about solving any problem. It's just really gives me a chance to get a snapshot of my day and to reflect a little bit and say, oh yeah. And then sometime the next day realizing that, oh yeah, those running tabs that were there yesterday actually are not there anymore today. And okay, good to notice. And so it just helps. That's been a process that's, I think I'm going to keep doing for a while, because it's been really helpful.
Well, and I like the fact that you're sharing that, because the one thing that I've always loved about why I created this podcast is not only to help other parents, but just people in general, give them, ideas and tips on, just a day to day. I'm a huge fan of whiteboards, huge fan,
Mm.
um, because for me, it's all about visualization and having visual cues, especially in my home office. And I'll read something and I'll go, "Ooh, that would make a great blog post," or something just to remind myself. For example, I read something recently, and the two words that stood out to me was "be bold." And so
Mm.
I took those words and I grabbed a sticky note and I put it on one of my whiteboards just to remind myself, don't always play small, you know, go out and, go big or go home. And if you fail, then you learn from that opportunity. You learn from that. Well, hopefully you learn. That's what growth is all about, right, Christian? Is that, you learn from that uh, mistake. So I love the fact that you're talking about, you have these tabs on, in your home office, and being able to look and see your own personal growth. And I'm sure there those little cues have helped you be successful in your own right.
No, thank you for that. It's been very, very helpful. And I use that a lot with my clients, with parents, because parents are, of course, as we know, parents are often in stress mode all the time, and there's never enough time, and it's often what my clients identify as the number one issue, that they're one way or another, they're just really stressed to the point where it's affecting all sorts of things. And uh, and and often there's, I think, because in our society we're not encouraged, again, to talk about emotional stuff. And we just, we go as far as acknowledging, oh, I'm stressed, oh, that was a horrible day, or that was, oh, such a tough day, or so, and but that's as far as we go. Or we may describe a little bit what created the stress, but that's where we stop. So if you think about the impact that parents have on their kids, I mean, parents have tremendous influence on their kids. They're their number one teachers, life teachers. So and they don't, parents don't even need to focus on, well, I'm going to make this a lesson for my kid, or I'm going to talk about, how to really, you know, do this well. And I mean, that's part of some, some tasks, some topics, but there's a lot that parents can do just by being. And the child will learn whatever it is that the parent is doing, just from being around their parents. And so when parents only talk about, in the regard of stress and stress management and managing anxiety, and how to take care of ourselves and how to manage our energy levels and all that good stuff, if the conversation stops at, oh, that was such a rough day, uh, and then there's nothing else, then that's what the child learns. And it means they're not learning much. They're not really learning how how do you take care of yourself in life? How do you take care of yourself when you're stressed? Like, how does stress affect you? How do so often part of my work focuses on not asking parents to do more, just asking them to do it differently. Because there's often no room to do anything more. And but to do things differently. So when parents are reconnecting with their kids, coming home from work or leaving the home office, and they're stressed, I'm always encouraging to find a way to share a little more of that, of what's going on internally for the parent with their child, to describe what stressed them out. And obviously the conversation will be different depending on the age of the child, and but to share what stressed them out, to share how it's affecting them, to say, oh, sometimes when I get stressed, like my head hurts, or sometimes my when I get so stressed, like I can't think of anything else, so I get really restless. I just can't sit still, or or sometimes it makes it hard for me to sleep at night. And and we're not in the mindset of doing that. And we're not, and or sometimes there's the fear that, oh, if we do that, it's going to give some bad ideas to our kids, or it's going to make them really unhappy. And but it's the opposite, because it's happening in real time. Kids, parents are feeling the stress, kids are feeling the stress from whatever, from school, from homework, from not having enough social interaction because of the pandemic, whatever the case is. And so when parents start sharing more about how stress is affecting them, how anxiety is affecting them, and saying things like, yeah, I think I need a little bit of quiet time, and and really sharing their thought process. Say, I'm going to, if there's a lot of talk about, oh, electronics are horrible for kids, and that, it's a whole other topic in itself. But the reality is, electronics are not going anywhere. and so we're having to find ways to live with them, and we're having to find ways to incorporate them into our lives, with as much mindfulness as possible. But we can't. I mean, it's really hard to live without them. Few families do it, but it's really difficult. And so so I'm sometime I'll work with clients and say, when if you come home from work, or at some point you're, you know all you have the energy to do is to just be on your phone, on your tablet, but your child is pulling you away because they want to spend time with you, they want attention, they want to play with you. And so you kind of like, you don't want to say no because you feel guilty, but you really only have enough energy to just do something really mindless and be on your phone and just scroll through you know your feed. And so you kind of like doing both, but you're not really doing any of it. And because you're not really able to relax, because you're giving some attention to your child, but your child isn't really feeling a lot of presence from you, because you're not really present at that time. So one possible solution is to really look at, well, how can you set boundaries, how can you teach your child, if your child is having a hard time learning how to be by themselves. And again, it's very different depending on the age of the child, but 4 or 5 year olds can play on their own for a certain amount of time. But sometimes, if they haven't learned that, then they're very resistant to doing that, because they just don't know how to do it, they've never practiced it. So sometimes it's about setting a boundary, and having the parent focus on, well, how am I going to teach my child to be okay playing by themselves for starting with 2 minutes, starting using a timer, starting because the timers make things really concrete. It gives, you were talking about visuals earlier, and it helps the child to have a visual and have something very, very tangible, and say, okay, you know I need a little bit of downtime because I'm stressed. That's what's going to help me feel better. So, and then I'd like you to play by yourself. Maybe you can be on your tablet, if you're old enough to be on the tablet, or if you're going to play with whatever you want to play with, and we'll start with 3 minutes, and then that can expand over weeks or months to 30 minutes or two, and where by setting those boundaries, not only it gives the parent a little bit of, you know, a little bit of downtime, a little bit of personal time, but it's also an opportunity to help the child understand, well, what's this whole thing that we call stress, and how it affects us, and how do we deal with it, and how do other people deal with it, and how. So it can be a really powerful conversation to have on a daily basis with kids.
Oh my gosh, you just open up my eyes, and I mean this sincerely, Christian, and that is, talking to our our kids, and I'm just gonna put a general blanket statement, no matter what the age is, uh, of talking to them about how stress affects we we parents. And as you were talking about that earlier, I'm writing these notes down, and all I keep thinking is last night, my daughter Becca, you know, not only was she at work, her boyfriend was to be packing their apartment that they were supposed to be out of as of last night, and she was calling her mom, and I can hear her, Christian, through the phone, just so stressed out.
Mm,
And she's 20, but she's still in my eyes still a child. And not to put that in a negative way, I mean, that's how we are. I mean, these are our kids, they're our children, no matter how old or how young they are. And
mm.
so today when I see her, I'm going to take your wonderful advice. I'm going to just say to her, hey Beck, here's how stress affects me. Here's what I do to try and get out of that stressful realm. How can I help you? And at the same time, you know I, our son is many states away going to college. That's going to be a conversation I'm going to try and have with him. Now, granted, he's a man of very few words, but I still want to put that seed in his mind that, oh my gosh, there was that one time dad was talking to me about stress. Maybe one of two things. Maybe he calls me or texts me, and you're talking about technology. I'm blessed that technology has gotten as far, talk about a soapbox, as far as it has, because that's how I had early communications with him when he first got his cell phone. He and I texted because, as a divorced dad, we weren't in the same household, so I was able to constantly just say, "Hey, how are you doing? I love you. How's school?" But going back, I'm going to, try and plant that seed, saying, "You're away at college. You're on your own. You're playing. You're playing a sport. You've got your studies. How can I help you with your stress level?" So, uh, thank you, Christian, for offering that wonderful, wonderful advice that we parents, we might not be aware of. I mean, definitely, I that's a conversation I don't think I've ever had
Mm.
ever with my mom or my dad or even my bonus dad or any of my guy friends. And I think that's a great conversation that we should start instilling with our kids. And maybe, and here's my question to you: how can we parents have those conversations with, let's say, at children that are young, 5 6 years old? How can we start planting that seed to give them the safe space going forward?
It's a great question, and and it's so yeah, I just want to acknowledge what you said about planting a seed, because often that's what it's all about. We're not, if we start focusing too much on the outcome of, oh, is this going to work or not, are they going to learn, or they don't want to listen to me, or they didn't even respond to my text, so it doesn't matter. what matters is that you just, you stick to the script. You know, you you plant that seed. You talk about what's true for you. You talk about, the first thing is to, by setting the stage, or you want to set the stage. So you want to, one way to create that safe space for kids to start thinking about their own emotions and their own stress level is for parents to talk about it, to talk about their own. And because, often parents will ask the child a lot of questions. Well, are you okay? Are you stressed? What are you, what's going on? And so part of my approach is to remove some of that intense focus on the child, and instead have the parents share how they're feeling, share their own experience. Because remember that whatever is happening, whatever you're doing on a daily basis, creates the normal for the child. It doesn't matter what it is. If the child grows up in an environment where people are yelling at each other all day long, then that's the normal that they know. They don't think, oh, it's horrible that my parents are yelling. Yeah, when they get older, they realize that it doesn't feel good, but it's whatever normal it is. So if you start talking about your emotions, what, how you felt during the day, what stressed you out, what helped you, what boosted your energy, what drained your energy, and if you just do it on a regular basis as part of everyday conversation, dinner conversation or whatnot, then soon, before you know it, the children will start using that language. And um, I've done a lot of work before transitioning into a parent coach. I worked as an occupational therapist for over 30 years, and I worked with um, kids who were neurodiverse, who had disabilities, neurodevelopmental disabilities like autism and whatnot, and sensory processing disorders, and and I worked with, among those kids were you know often had children who were social emotional situations were the absolute most challenging situations in their life. And they were great at other things, but understanding their emotions and understanding other people's emotions, understanding social rules was just a complete mystery. And by using this language during therapy sessions, and I would include the parents in the therapy sessions, and parents would say, well, how do I teach him? We've been trying to show him, tell him about how emotions work, but the child didn't have enough of a framework. So instead, what I started doing in the sessions was to talk about my own emotions, to talk about,
Oh,
or
right, right.
and then I would encourage the parents to do the same, or I would just, describe. So the next step is is to give the child feedback. Just share your observations without trying to fix anything. Say, like, for example, you're talking about your daughter, having to deal with moving and moving out of their place and moving to your place, and say, it got me thinking, because I wonder how stressful that was, because I know when each time I've moved, and I'm may not be the case for you, but an example of conversation, each time I've moved, it was stressful, trying to clean up the place and trying to pack everything and trying to, and so I'm wondering how stressful that was for you. And so just, you basically, you're not you're not making assumptions, you're not asking her to fix anything, you're not asking her to be one way or another. You're just opening the door, you're creating an invitation for her to share how she's feeling. And so what's interesting is that when people are not used to have those types of conversations, often the response will be, oh no, I'm fine, it's good. When really people are not good, people are not fine. And so then, there's, your daughter, so if she says no, I'm fine, and you believe that she's really fine, you'll know. But if you can tell that she's not, then there's an opportunity to push a little further, say, okay, well, I'm good, that's, I know you'll be fine, I know you're strong, and I know, but it's I was just, it just got me thinking, because it's a big change. Moving is a big change of lifestyle, and you're losing your place, you're having to adjust to being here, and you had to do all of this, and so I just, if you need anything, let me know, or and it's inviting the person to, it creates that safe space to talk about it, because often the conversations are along the lines of, when someone acknowledges that they're stressed about something, they're worried about, you know, a work situation, a child situation, or whatever they're worried about. Often the next, the response from the other person is, "You got this," which comes from a great place. It comes from a place of encouragement, from a place of, I believe in you, from a place of, there's something hopeful about that message. It's good, but it closes the door. It closes the door to talking about how you're really feeling. When somebody, I had a friend once during the pandemic, and it was toward the beginning of the pandemic. My dad had just passed away, and I was just not in a great emotional space, and I was trying everything I could, but it was a little rough. And so a friend came to visit me, and I have a bit, growing up, I had a history of not acknowledging my emotions, because it made my parents too uncomfortable. So I had to learn over time to really make a point to, okay, how am I really feeling? So when somebody asks me, how you doing, is this a time where I should be really truthful? Is this somebody that I care enough about, that I'm close enough to, that I can't tell them the truth and not say, oh, I'm fine, when I'm not. And so my friend, I opened the front door, and she's like, hey, how you doing, Christian? I'm like, well, it's actually been a bit of a rough week. And she was very uncomfortable with that kind of emotional display. So she got a little awkward, and then she said, well, but today's a beautiful day, so at least it's going to be a good day. So it came from very good intention. She's a very caring person, but in emotional terms, she closed the door. She closed the door to that conversation. It did not create a safe space. It signaled to me that, okay, she doesn't want to go there. She doesn't want to talk about this. And so this is just an example to illustrate how we can create a safe space, but just sometimes by, sometimes we're too worried about having to fix the situation, having to help people. Just, we want to fix the situation for them so they're going to be happy and okay. And sometimes, and often the goal is not in fixing the situation, but the goal is in creating that space for them to talk about what they're going through, whether they're freaking out, whether they're really upset because because of whatever is going on, and to just listen and be there for them, and say, and validate. So validation is a huge piece, and saying things like, I can tell this is stressful. I can imagine, if I were in your shoes, this probably would stress me out too. And I can hear in your voice. So I can hear, and sometimes that's all there is. That's all that needs to be said.
So one thing that you were talking earlier about, and it's ironic that we're now in recording this, and we're actually in the month of November, and the big push for November is, talking about, men's mental health, with it being Movember, where, this is where, and luckily for you, Christian, you already have a beautiful mustache. But Movember is about, you know, essentially growing a mustache to help support other men, mental health. Um, Two Australians came up with this Movember, Travis Garone and Luke Slattery. And so one of the things that you're talking about is the emotional piece, and saying to another, I'm not well. In your experience as a parenting coach, and I don't know how to frame the question, but other than saying, as men, we're not wired, essentially to say to another man, hey, I'm struggling. My dad recently passed away, or I lost my job, or I'm having problems at home. It's what you were saying. So, if you and I were, maybe walking down the street and we run into each other, hey Christian, how you doing? And your immediate answer could be, oh, I'm good. Oh, wonderful. Well, you have a great day. Well, you too. Bye. Versus, hey, do you have a moment? I Can I talk to you? In your parenting coaching, how, again, I don't know how to phrase it other than maybe just saying, can is there a way we dads, we men can do or should be doing or could do a better job with our boys in expressing more empathy?
Absolutely, yeah. And this is a huge topic, um, that emotions don't discriminate. Emotions are not based on gender, and the human brain is wired to feel all emotions, the entire range of emotions, whether it's anger, sadness, or joy, or envy, or whatever it is, and loneliness, and whether you're a boy or a girl, the human brain is wired to feel all of those emotions. So when boys grow up in an environment where they're told to they somehow the message becomes that if they show too many emotions, too many of the negative emotions, the loneliness, the sadness, the message is that if they show too many of those emotions, that they're not strong enough. They're not, it goes as far as telling them that in some cases that they're not manly enough. So then the child, who doesn't have enough of a life perspective, um, draws conclusion that, okay, well, in order to be a man, I can't show my emotions. And then so they learn early on to really suppress those emotions. And we need learning to do anything, whether it's to play tennis or learn a new language, or learning how to tune into your emotions. It takes a long time. It takes work, for anything, to learn any kind of skill. So if you never practice that skill, then you just don't even know that you're not doing it. And so then you end up in your as an adult, as a young man or an adult man, to with those emotional responses of somebody says, how you doing, and you feel like crap, but your life is falling apart, or maybe your relationships are falling apart, or you're completely stressed with work, or and you say, oh, I'm cool, I'm good, and I'll be okay, I'm strong. And that's often the message, even from our friends and from other guys. It's, come on, you got this, dude. You're strong. You got this. What does that really mean? And so if you didn't grow up in an environment where you just saw this display, where there were conversations, healthy conversations about stress and anxiety and emotions, and then it's just then you've never learned that skill. So you can learn it. You can learn it anytime. It's just, it just takes a little more work as an adult to learn. And so, but the beautiful part of this is uh when it's one of the many things that I love about my work, but is often I see dads, and that's, it's a broad general statement, I'm aware of it, lots of individual situations, but I see dads realizing that in order to support their kids better, and whether it's a girl or boy, they they need to start processing their emotions a little differently, and the motivation becomes their child, and the motivation becomes that they want to be the best possible parent for their child, and then they realize that by changing a little bit of how they process the emotions, or to become a little more vulnerable and to share a little more about how they're truly feeling, they can really support their child a lot better. And so the beautiful part is that by focusing at first on how to help your child, then often see the parents helping themselves and healing or growing, however you want to look at it, depending on the situation. And so yeah, it's fascinating. It's a fascinating topic.
Well, definitely have to have you come back, Christian. We can definitely talk about that. Um, Christian, thank you so much. I am pleased that this is another one of those where we've taken the social media, being on LinkedIn together, taking that, commenting on things together, messaging each other, and then taking it to the next level, which was we had a phone conversation. Here we are, and I am just so pleased to call you a friend, Christian, and somebody who's also in the parenting space. You're doing. I love your work. I love your website, lifeguidecoaching.org. You've got some great information out there. Um, Other than the website and LinkedIn, are there any other ways that the listeners can get a hold of you, Christian?
I think these are the best way. The my um, phone number is listed on my website, so that's a way to reach me. And then my email is also on the website. So that's lots of ways to reach me, either by phone, text, email, or direct message through LinkedIn. So all those are good ways.
My mom really wanted me to be fluent in French. She, whenever I went to summer camp, she always signed me up for French. I struggle. I struggle with French. I struggle with English, obviously. So I'm going to attempt it. I'm going to attempt it. So Christian Vinceneux.
Yes, you passed the test.
Oui. Oui, oui.
Très bien, c'est très bien, Tommy.
Muy bien. So as we've come to our conclusion, are you ready for the last question, Christian?
Well, you can always ask.
All right. Well, if you don't ask, the answer is no. So here we go. The last question is, Christian, if you could step into my shoes, what would you have asked that I didn't ask? If you could
Hmm.
have stepped into my shoes, what would you have asked that I didn't ask?
I was not prepared for that question. So my mind is going to so many different directions, but I think one area that I see is that often comes up in my work is when people have a hard time deciding when is the time that I should reach out for help, whether to me as a parent coach, or to anyone else, another coach or a therapist, or like when do I know that it's the time? And it's not an easy question to answer, because it ties to, and I'll try to be as brief as possible because I know we're running out of time, but um it has to do with, again, we're not used to talking about mental health, so we used to endure stress and anxiety, as something, well, that's just normal. That's just what life is about. That's part of life. And yes, it is. But there's a point where it gets a little too much. There's a point where the stress that you're having and whether it's the power struggles with your children or the anxiety that you notice with your kids or your own stress and being overwhelmed with life and all of the roles that you're trying to manage as a parent, there's a point where it takes a toll. And so it's going to be different. The answer to that question is going to be different for every family. But when do you make the call to reach out for a professional to decide, this has gotten too much, and I want some help? Because there's this shame. There's a lot of shame in our society, and there's shame, there's embarrassment acknowledging that you need help, because then the next message is, well, does it mean then that I'm not a good parent if I need help? And nobody wants to face that feeling. And so so it's a lot about trying to determine, when potential clients call me or contact me and say, well, how do I know if this is really, if I really need help, or if it's just, eventually things will get better and it's just part of life, and everybody gets stressed a little bit. And so I just ask a lot of questions, because I can't make that determination for any particular person or family. And I say, based on your own situation, on the culture of your own family, how much is this affecting you? How much is this problem affecting you? How much is it affecting your children, the well-being of your children? What are they learning from this situation? And how is it affecting you physically? How is it affecting your career, your work productivity? How is it affecting your relationship with your spouse? How is it affecting, and then, and if you feel like, well, yeah, it's kind of like bothering you, but it's not that big of a deal, then maybe you don't need help at this point. But if you feel like it's, often as people start reflecting on, wow, yeah, it is really affecting me. I haven't been able to, do some kind of physical fitness activity for 5 years because of, I never have the time, and my health is failing, or I'm having a huge problem sleeping at night, or I can't focus at work because I'm so anxious about my kids. And so then they start realizing, okay, I do need help. But I think that's one big question that often comes up.
Well, I go back to asking for help is not a weakness. Asking for help is a strength.
That's a beautiful way to sum it up.